Ever have a really bad week and wonder upon waking up each day, what horrible thing will happen today? What else can go wrong? For a country that was already on the brink of complete economic collapse, with the government having defaulted on debt, the pound plunging, and the national poverty rate rising steadily past 50%, the thought was probably not far from any Lebanese mind. During the mid-morning rush in the Port of Beirut, a fire in a warehouse next to grain silos and fireworks ignited a blast so large it was felt around the entire world. It wasn't just the fireworks that exploded, however. There were also over 2,500 tons of ammonium nitrate that had been haphazardly stored in the same warehouse for 7 years. The massive blast killed hundreds, injured thousands, and left Lebanon without a functioning government. The cargo ship MV Rosus made port in Beirut on November 21, 2013. The ship was carrying 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, equivalent to about 2,000 kilotons of TNT. It's believed that the ship was initially forced to port due to mechanical issues and possibly having some engine troubles. While docked, it attempted to take on a shipment of heavy machinery in order to have sufficient funds to pay tolls for the Suez Canal. The load was stacked on top of the doors to the cargo space containing the ammonium nitrate, causing the doors to buckle and damaging the ship. Upon inspection by the Port State Control, the Rosus was deemed unseaworthy. The ship was forbidden to set sail. The Beirut Port Authority seized the vessel on February 4th of 2014 due to unpaid port fees. Per a judge's order, the cargo was brought ashore and placed in Warehouse 12 at the port, where it remained unchecked for the next 6 years. It was allowed to sit there and decay next to filled grain silos and stashes of fireworks. Ammonium nitrate is a crystal-like white solid substance, commonly used as a source of nitrogen for agricultural fertilizer, but it can also be combined with fuel oils to create explosives. Mainly used in mining and construction, it has also been used by militants to make amateur bombs. Experts say that the substance is relatively safe when stored properly. However, if a large amount of the material is just lying around for a long time, it begins to steadily decay. Andrea Sella, professor of chemistry at the University College of London, told BBC, "The real problem is that over time, little bits of moisture are absorbed by the ammonium nitrate, eventually turning it into one single enormous and solid combustible rock. On at least 10 separate occasions over the 6 years, numerous customs officials sent letters to judges requesting that the ammonium nitrate be either exported, given to the army, or sold to a private Lebanese explosives company. These letters were all largely ignored. One of the letters sent in 2016 noted that the judges had not replied to any previous requests and pleaded, in view of the serious danger of keeping these goods in the hangar and unsuitable climatic conditions, we reaffirm our request to please have the Marine Agency re-export these goods immediately to preserve the safety of the port and those working in it." Possibly foreshadowing the future, those words now resonate loudly, because the Port of Beirut became a hellish landscape on the evening of August 4th, 2020, when a fire broke out in Warehouse 12, causing a massive explosion. Earlier in the day, welding maintenance was conducted on a hole in the door to the warehouse. This was later confirmed by the port's general manager, Hassan Kuratem. He was quoted by CNN as saying, "We were asked to fix a door in the warehouse by state security. That was done at noon. What occurred after that, I have no idea." A former port worker claimed that the warehouse had not been in regular use, and that those in charge only used it to store perilous products or confiscated materials they didn't want to deal with. This port worker was also noted as saying that there were 30 to 40 nylon bags of fireworks inside the warehouse that he had seen personally, though he had not seen this to include any armaments. A first response team consisting of 9 firefighters and 1 paramedic, referred to as Platoon 5, were dispatched to fight the rapidly spreading fire. Upon arriving at the scene, they immediately reported that something was wrong. The fire was huge and was producing a crazy sound. The initial explosion, triggered by the stored fireworks, had a force of nearly 2.5 tons of TNT. It sent up a large plume of smoke, and crackles of super bright firework flashes were observed in the sky. The blast heavily damaged the structure of the warehouse. All of Platoon 5 lost their lives instantly. A secondary explosion, only 30 seconds later, shook the entire country of Lebanon and was heard 240 miles away in Cyprus. The shockwave was felt as far away as Turkey, Syria, Palestine, Israel, and even parts of Europe. It was detected by the United States Geological Survey as well, registering at a 3.3 magnitude on the Richter scale. This second blast rocked central Beirut, sending a red-orange trail of smoke into the air. It was briefly surrounded by a white condensation cloud. The red-orange color of the smoke was caused by nitrogen dioxide, a byproduct of the decomposition of ammonium nitrate. The explosion created a supersonic blast wave that shot throughout the city. Homes as far away as 6 miles were damaged by the blast. It overturned vehicles, stripped steel-framed buildings of their cladding, destroyed sections of the shoreline, and left a crater roughly 407 feet in diameter and 141 feet deep, which immediately then filled with seawater. The port and most of the surrounding neighborhoods and businesses were completely obliterated, making it seem from satellite imaging as if they had never existed at all. The nearby grain silos were also largely destroyed, exacerbating the already existing food shortages caused by the country's severe financial crisis. About 15,000 tons of grain was lost, leaving Lebanon with less than a month's worth of grain in reserve. 90% of the hotels in the city were damaged, and 3 hospitals were completely reduced to rubble, while 2 more suffered heavy damage. Almost 300 people lost their lives in the explosion, while a whopping 7,000 more were severely injured. Dozens of injured brought to nearby hospitals could not be treated and were turned away because of the damage to the structures. St. George Hospital, one of the city's largest medical facilities, located less than a mile from the explosion, was treating patients in the streets because they could not safely use the heavily damaged building. 4 nurses died in the blast. 15 patients also died after their ventilators stopped working. Several child cancer patients were severely injured by flying grass and other debris. Historical landmark Sursak Palace sustained heavy damage as well, including many priceless works of art. A cruise ship berthed near the port suffered extensive damage and capsized overnight. 2 members of its crew were killed, and 7 were badly injured. Another ship was blown out of the water completely and onto the dockside. The Lebanese Red Cross said that every available ambulance from North Lebanon, Bekaa, and South Lebanon had been dispatched to Beirut to help. According to agency records, a total of 75 ambulances and 375 medics were activated in response to the explosion. Marwan Aboud, the governor of Beirut, arrived at the scene to aid in the search for the firefighters who had been on site, attempting to control the fire that was raging before the secondary blast. He broke down in tears on live television, calling the event a national catastrophe. He said, "It resembles what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. That's what it reminds me of. In my life, I've never seen destruction on this scale." Experts from the Blast and Impact Research Group at the University of Sheffield estimate that the explosion was the 6th largest non-nuclear explosion ever recorded. The Federal Institute for Geosciences and Natural Resources in Germany produced a yield estimate that the blast was equal to that of 1.1 kilotons of TNT. It's noted that the explosion in Beirut had similar occurrences to those in Taiyuan, China in 2015, in Texas City, USA in 1947, or in Toulouse, France in 2001, all of which involved large amounts of improperly stored ammonium nitrate. By the next morning, August 5th, the main fire that led to the explosion had finally been extinguished. In the days following the disaster, the Lebanese government declared a 2-week state of emergency. The damage from the blast affected well over half of Beirut, with the cost likely rising far past the estimated 15 billion USD. Health Minister Hamad Hassan requested that international aid be sent to Lebanon. In answer to his request, more than a few countries sent in food, medical supplies, field hospitals, medical personnel, and rescue teams. While many countries offered aid and condolences, most notable of these was Israel, who offered their aid via UN channels because Israel and Lebanon have no diplomatic ties and are technically at war. The offer was refused by the Lebanese government. Several countries expressed solidarity by lighting up landmarks and monuments in the colors of the Lebanese flag. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, France went dark at midnight, while flags in other countries were flown at half-mast. Failure to remove the hazardous materials from the warehouse and relocate them was attributed to mismanagement of the port, as well as systemic government corruption. Because of this, the president rejected all calls for an international probe, despite demands from numerous world leaders. The first week after the explosion, civilians gathered in hundreds to volunteer to clean up debris from the streets, homes, and businesses in the neighborhoods surrounding the port. Those who could opened their homes and hotels for free to those who had lost their homes in the blast. The civilian volunteers removed debris, while the local business owners offered to cover the cost of repairing or rebuilding damaged buildings. This was all done in response to a conveniently absent official state-sponsored cleanup operation. On August 9, 2020, a multinational summit hosted by France raised 2.3 million euros in aid. The money pledge was not to be given to the Lebanese government, but rather to the people of Lebanon through the United Nations, other international and non-governmental organizations. In addition to recovery efforts, a $565 million appeal for immediate humanitarian aid was launched for Lebanon by the United Nations. UNESCO played a leading role in the rescue and reconstruction of historic buildings. Blue Shield International assessed damage to houses, museums, and libraries, and the International Council of Museums provided expertise. The Lebanese government formed an investigation committee led by Prime Minister Hassan Diab. The investigation was to examine whether the explosion was a complete accident or due to negligence, and if it was caused by a bomb or some other type of external interference. Upon questioning, Diab stated that he had only found out about the existence of the ammonium nitrate early in June and immediately requested further information. He had received a file on the situation at the port on July 22nd, but that the part predicting the catastrophic effects of an explosion had been conspicuously omitted. He also stated he forwarded the file to the Ministry of Public Works, under whose purview the port falls, requesting them to investigate the chemicals at the port. Suspiciously, the blast occurred at 6 p.m. that very same day. He's quoted as saying, "There's something not right about the report coming in on July 22nd, and then for it to blow up the same day the report was sent to the Public Works for review? The timing is just unexplainable." Meanwhile, the Minister of Public Works told Al Jazeera that he had only found out about the presence of the ammonium nitrate in late July, and had just spoken to the port's general manager 2 days before the blast. Between mid-August and December of 2020, the total number of arrested or accused totaled 25. In addition, Lebanon's outgoing Prime Minister Diab and 3 other ministers were charged with negligence over the explosion. Over the next few months, most of the Lebanese government would resign, leaving the already burdened country without a functioning government. Judge Fadi Sawan, the first investigative judge appointed, charged 3 more ministers with criminal negligence. Every one failed to appear before the judge. 2 of the charged ministers filed a lawsuit with the Court of Cassation to remove Judge Sawan. In retaliation, the judge then suspended the investigation for nearly 2 months, from mid-December to February. Then on the 18th of February 2021, Lebanon's Court of Cassation dismissed him. In July of 2021, the new judge assigned to the case, Judge Tarek Bitar, submitted a request to Parliament to lift Parliament immunity for MPs. Granting immunity to political officials like Judge Sawan did directly contradicts Lebanon's obligations under the UN 2016 Minnesota Protocol. After the explosion, Lebanon's president said matter-of-factly that if the country did not quickly form a government in correct course, it was headed to hell, and that's where it currently appears to be heading. He also suggested that an external force, either a rocket, a bomb, or similar act, could have led to the blast. In light of this statement, many different theories have come out about the possible cause of the explosion, the most believable being that factions in Lebanon have been siphoning off the substance for years to make explosives. There have been several reports suggesting that far less of the ammonium nitrate exploded than initially thought. According to Reuters, an FBI report and a report published in September 2021 estimated that only 20% brought to the port in 2013 had actually detonated, which raises the question, what happened to the rest of it? There's much speculation that Hezbollah was storing weapons in Beirut and that Israel had wanted them destroyed. Because of this theory, Lebanon, Israel, and Hezbollah have allegedly conspired to deny everything about a weapons cache being the reason for the destruction. Instead, they blame the chemical itself. Furious Lebanese have continued to accuse the nation's leaders of crimes for allowing the horrific situation to happen in the first place. These accusations have largely been supported by Human Rights Watch. The group has found evidence of criminal negligence, which amounts to possible intentional or unintentional homicide under Lebanese law. A year after the blast, the investigation has stalled, and justice continues to evade the victims' families. None of Lebanon's senior politicians have met with the families. There's been no formal apology, no acknowledgement of responsibility, and not one person has been prosecuted. All involved have by and large failed to cooperate with requests for formal interrogation led by Judge Bitar. And because of this stalemate, the country has been left without a government. In June 2021, Amnesty International wrote to the UN Human Rights Council with a coalition of over 50 Lebanese and international organizations, calling for an international investigative mission, such as a one-year fact-finding mission into the Beirut blast. Unfortunately for the Lebanese people, many of the country's politicians have managed to cling to power despite the magnitude of the explosion and the outcry of public anger toward them. Many of them are ex-warlords, holdovers from Lebanon's brutal civil war that ended in 1990. They continue to reign over the tatters of a grieving country in an economic meltdown, leaving more than half of the population impoverished. Their economic unraveling is so severe that the World Bank has described it as one of the worst crises in more than 150 years. Much of the repair work is still ongoing a year later, and much of the city still looks as it did just a week after the blast. Lebanon's dire economic straits mean that most of the rebuilding efforts have been privately funded or have to be supported by non-profit organizations. Many home and business owners say they have neither the financial means nor the physical strength to return to the affected neighborhoods. "They've ruined us. I'd sell my soul to leave this country," said one Lebanese shop owner on the once hip but still extensively damaged Gamay Street, referring to the country's ruling class. May they never again see a good day. To the Lebanese, the explosion is the gravest manifestation of how they have suffered under the country's dysfunctional leadership. The oligarchy has so severely mismanaged the state that it's pushed Lebanon into what the World Bank has called a deliberate depression, a crisis that ranks in the top 10, possibly the top 3 most severe crisis episodes globally since the mid-19th century. Justice is rarely present in Lebanon, where bombings and political assassinations have gone unresolved and unpunished in the land of impunity. There is a heaviness, an exhaustion, a humiliation to what passes for everyday life in Lebanon. It is fueling a seething hatred for the political class and a dread of what new or deeper crisis tomorrow will bring. As one grief-stricken mother of a soldier killed in the explosion says, "Those traitors in Parliment, those deaf-blind mutes who don't want to see or hear us, they have no conscience. I love my son. I miss him every day. And when I'm at my saddest, my lowest, I remember there are 217 other hearts that feel this same pain, that share the same beat." That's what I tell myself. As a direct result of the explosion in the port of Beirut, concerns were raised about the storage of ammonium nitrate in other ports across the world. In fact, large quantities of the chemical compound were removed from storage in Egypt, India, Romania, and Senegal. In August 2021, a memorial was held marking the one-year anniversary of the disaster. It was held in tribute, to the victims at the Port of Beirut. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. This is a new project I'm trying where I cover dark events in history, disasters, things like that. Mostly I'm going to try to cover stuff that I think not a lot of people have heard before because I think it needs to be talked about more, and I'll try to do my best to cover it with as much information as I am able to find myself. I also like to include the aftermath of what happened and if anything changed as a result. If you guys appreciated the content in this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, but only if you feel so inclined. I'd like to give a special thanks to Toxic Queen, who assisted in writing this script with me after I compiled all the research and evidence together. I would also like to give a special thanks to my video editor. You will find a link to his social media in the description below. You will also find a link to my social media in case you want me to cover any particular event that's happened in history that you don't think a lot of people talk about normally. I'll try to give it a shot and do my best to do it justice. If you guys are curious about the music used in this video, it will be listed in the description. I will also list all of my sources, so if you would like to read onward on your own and discover more about the event, that will be available to you. If you guys like other kinds of dark, horror, scary content kind of stuff, I also have a channel called Blue Spooky where I read true scary stories and do documentary videos on mysteries and things like that. And then I also have a true crime channel called Mr. Blue Skies, which you can check out if you'd like that kind of thing as well. I think that's all for now though, guys, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great and safe day.